Hello and good morning. My name is Bita Sadanandan, and today is the 20th of March 2026, and the time is 6:31 a.m. And the area of what I'm doing here is basically practicing voicing out what I've been doing or what I do in the course of everyday living in maintaining life. And I have a method of healthcare called Nirbeeja Yoga. Okay, and it's a movementless method of yoga and from a person-centric model of the universe. Now, I have been practicing this in some time, and I discovered this is not how people do yoga. Patanjali, in his Yoga Sutra, the English translation of the Yoga Sutra, um, mentions about a fourth method of breathing, which he, in the English translation, says is effortless. And I was suspecting, is that what he was talking about? What I am doing is as beneficial, maintains health effortlessly, but has multiple benefits. But it's not mentioned in the book. There, he's talking about many other stuff, or it is not easily recognizable, or I need to read that book again. But nevertheless, that's not how people maintain health, because they even strike poses. They talk about yoga in many terms, except in the terms, except in terms of the benefits that I see is possible from movementless yoga or this effortless yoga. While people do yoga and they are asked to smile to have that smile come. Even Surya Namaskar, it's called Surya Namaskar, but where's the smile? They have to ask them to smile. And I was thinking, that's yoga? That's Surya Namaskar? Maybe something is off. And then I discovered people do yoga reading books. And it is so obvious. Sometimes I can actually say, I don't know which is the text you're reading, but I can say this is because of how you read that textbook or some textbook, but you've read that textbook, and this sequence of actions, behavior is from suboptimal translation from a textbook to action. So I thought there's a little problem here. And then I discovered people don't do what's called as Tattva Shuddhi and Vishachikitsa. Some of the practices that Yoga Shastras talk is necessary for having the benefits of yoga, or at least one text mentioned it. And I don't know if it's a regular practice with other practitioners. There is a yoga sequencing that I read. There also they're talking about how to begin with the yoga practices, gentle to um, layered practices. But there also, maybe I should read that book even more in depth, and somewhere they will mention about it. But I've read about Tattva Shuddhi and not necessarily Vishachikitsa, but that would be part of it, I'm thinking, as necessary for a yoga practitioner. And I thought maybe that's why people are behaving the way they do, because they don't do that, or they don't teach it, or the importance of that is not emphasized. And Nirbeeja Yoga is about that's all is needed, kind of. You know, Vishachikitsa and Tattva Shuddhi, at least you're maintaining your conscience clean. And when your conscience is clean, you can live a normal, ordinary, harmonious living. Okay, living. Otherwise, you're surviving life. And if you want to dance, you want to stand on your hands, you want to, yeah, I'm going with hands right now. Yeah. You want to scale mountains, trekking, then you need a little more exercise. So there are a range of exercises from there. But if you're going to go to the gym just to maintain your muscles, to look good, then that's your scheduling time through the day to look good. That's like some standing in front of mirrors, applying makeup. That also brings certain benefits. But if you want your muscles to look a certain way and to appear healthy, while you may be putty inside, or yeah, so um, a definition of health may have gone with first impressions. You know, how is the first impression? And beauty is but skin deep. So a little superficial living and the actual substance of the matter, character, quality of life, not as you know, people with a metal as they used to be earlier. So, and I have been very dissatisfied with it. And today, now we have to come to the elbows. That's the area of the body that we would be maintaining health of by the Nirbeeja Yoga style, but I'm elbowing the matter, yeah, through the crowds of opinions. I'm a little stoked by a message I read on WhatsApp, and that's talking about semi-Dirac fermions. And these are particles inside zirconium silicon sulfate. Silicon sulfate. The thing is, and they have mass in one direction and no mass in the other direction. Yeah. That's like life has value this side, otherwise you're a ghost. Yeah. And they were discovered when the particles were cooled down to near absolute zero, and then the magnetic force was amplified 900,000 times that of Earth to discover the particle. Yeah. And I was thinking human beings are like that. And these particles can also be used, apparently, to gauge environmental changes on Earth. So now I was thinking human beings are a barometer. We can we can pay attention to environmental changes, and then while there are instruments for how the environment is moving, our human body is designed to be like a barometer. Gauge pressure differences and maintain health, geodesimal health. So I'm a semi-Dirac fermion, human beings, tiny little ones. Yeah. But have a purpose, duty with a purpose on this side. The other side are quite ghost. Yeah. All right. So on that note, how do we maintain the semi-Diron fermion, zirconium, silicon, sulfate? Otherwise, we're from hell. Sulfate, sulfur, mercury, salt are three alchemical constants. Yeah. And mercury is also the coating in a mirror. So mirror, mirror on the wall, do you look at yourself? And can you say who's the fairest of them all? And can you be the fairest of them all? And then there is salt. We all have, our sweat also has salt. Anything on earth has salt. And then we add salt onto it. And then our BP rises. And there are Gandhiji's, the Dandi March was about making salt, while there was this hedge put against salt, put a tax against people who would want to buy salt. So that sad story is part of the salt we eat. Yeah, and then we sprinkle it generously sometimes in our meals, and cannot taste food without salt. I was thinking. So I was in school, and my teachers cooked a meal, and we went for a field trip outing, and they forgot to bring salt. And I was noticing lines, rows and rows of students, they couldn't eat, or rather, they wouldn't eat. They were making faces, and I thought the meal was so tasty. Teachers made them, man. Where in the world do you get to eat teachers? Food cooked by teachers. Oh my God, I took a second helping. But I was thinking salt made all the difference. They couldn't eat what teachers made, and tasty at that. I was thinking either I'm odd, or there is something about how we eat food and what we eat as food. And over time, I discovered other people also talking, there's no bigger punishment than serving people food without salt. And I was thinking, oh dear, yeah, try that. Your life will be so much more lighter. Your BP will be so much lesser. So you can actually appreciate the pressure that's there per geodesimal location and appreciate the pressure that is there in being alive. Earth maintains life. Other planets are in different stages of discovering what wood element is, maramandai. Okay. Yeah, wood element. Human beings wouldn't form if we didn't have plants, animals, microbes, organisms. Yeah, the organization that includes a fine relationship with the solar system, family, Milky Way galaxy family, other galaxy, different compositions. Microcosm and macrocosm. If you're only going to be eating salt, sugar, oil, your relationships goes a little okey pokey. Yeah, you could have crystals in your body that is giving you hallucinatory ideas. Yeah, because they diffract light in 7 colors at least. Right. Now, refraction. All right. Nirbeeja Yoga style, maintaining the elbow region requires, well, you could pay attention to the elbow in any posture, sitting, lying down, standing, twisting, dancing, you could do that. But for the purpose of a certain uniform experience, because we are all on the same planet Earth, I don't know where you're listening to this from. You could be from a mountain, listening to this from a mountaintop or from sea level, and your elbow's physiology would be different. Yeah, you could be sitting in a cave or in wintry season, or too much a lot in a desert, a lot of heat, versus a tropical climate, and your elbow's physiology would be different. And I'm from a tropical climate place, South India, Bengaluru, and we've had a little cloudy weather yesterday. So all of that affects the physiology of my elbows differently versus your physiology differently, depending on where you are, geodesimal location, how's the experience of health, what do you do, what did you eat. That makes a difference in how your elbow is functioning versus your neighbor. Yeah. Or your elbow versus your family member in the same room. Okay. And if you're male and female, there's further physiological difference. Now, nevertheless, you have at elbow. You would say, oh, difference is minimal. Even 0.1 difference brings the Euler's formula. Yeah, distraction, deviation, and maintaining being human and maintaining being you is important. Otherwise, you become somebody else. Like a periodic table has many elements. If there is slight differences, you'll become another element. Yeah, and who's going to do your work in maintaining being you? Yeah, so that's some of the difference that Nirbeeja Yoga makes available. You recalibrate as the day goes. Many influence on the body. You kind of distract. You become somebody a little different than whom you normally would be. You could even age. Advanced glycation end products, and then you need to recalibrate. So you're being more you and thinking your thoughts versus getting distracted, refracted, becoming something else instead of becoming a better you. Yeah, from your position, from who you need to be. All right. Having said that, your elbow is your elbow. So I invite you to take a seat on a chair such that you can place your knees at a 90-degree angle vis-a-vis your ankles, which can be placed flat on the ground, which means the chair needs to be at a height that you can place your feet on the ground flat, and such a way that your knees can be placed at a 90-degree angle. That will allow for your hip to be at a posture that is not straining. If it's wider, it strains on the hips. Too narrower, it strains on the hips. But at a 90-degree, your anatomical posture is supported by other bones, such that your thigh bone is not the only one running the show, but ankles, your lower legs, your upper body is all supporting the thighs in maintaining the posture. Yeah, least effort, maximum result. Yeah, all well, all naturally beautiful, mechanically aligned. And then your elbows are a bone joint, which means the hips then move on, has a strain through the spine, has a strain through the shoulders, and the shoulder joints is where the arms are attached. Yeah, has a relationship. And the elbows are part of the relationship that the arms maintain with the shoulders. Now, you already know this, but the thing is, when you experience it, when you place your knees at a 90-degree angle, or the way that I said here, your elbows experience life differently. And Nirbeeja Yoga is experiential learning. And such that you don't even have to speak, chant anything, have any incense or candles burning, or visualization, none of it. It's just yoga from just having an alive human body. Okay? So the experience of your elbow with a different posture gives a different physiology for your elbows. So we are maintaining the physiological health of your elbows. Yeah, maintaining the health of elbows. So in this posture, I invite you to bring your attention to the joint called the elbows. Yeah, which is a forward bending joint for humans. Arms are forward bending, knees are backward bending. Big difference in from animals. We would be kind of a ghostly, devil-like creature if we try to behave like animals, walking on, unless we don't bend our knees and elbows, in which case it would be interesting how you would move. But okay, nevertheless, um, while paying attention to monkeys move that way. Okay. Um, I invite you to bring your attention to your elbows and then notice any sense of tension between the bones above and the bones below, which form the elbow joint. That is the bones of the upper arms and the bones of the lower arms, which together form the elbow joint. Now, how do you pay attention to bones? Just pay attention to your elbows. If you notice tension, that's likely coming from the bones above and the bones below. That's like the heaven and hell of for elbows. Yeah. Well, there's the upper and lower, and then there is a joint in the middle, the experience on earth. Now, your elbow, elbow power or earning your elbow grease, your everyday experiences of living will have some influence, some effect on this elbow joint. Also, the elbow joint is very interestingly related with your diaphragm. When your diaphragm is relaxed, your elbows are relaxed because the rib cage is relaxed. The rib cage is related with your bony structure and influences your elbow. So there is a relationship there. But if you notice your elbows tense and you relax it, your diaphragm also tends to have a certain effect. And vice versa. Relax the elbow, diaphragm, elbows relax. But your existential angst may be related with the elbows because you may tend to be ready for fight, flight, freeze, and your elbows, the muscles of your elbows could be so bunched that instead of living, you're more surviving. And noticing the health of your elbows could tell if you're living or surviving. Yeah. If you're ready for, you're an employee, you're an employer, victim, perpetrator, rescuer, all of those dynamics will show up in how the elbows are maintaining health or how the elbows are, which means consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously, supraconsciously, your elbows could be bunched because of how your body wants to punch or not punch. Yeah, wants to fight, flight, freeze, run away, fight, or be frozen. And that has an effect on your elbows. Some people have their elbows paining sometimes. That's because subconsciously, unconsciously, supraconsciously, they are bunched up in their muscles. And relaxing the elbows becomes so much an important part of how you earn your elbow grease. You could earn your living by fight, flight, freeze, or you could earn your living by vulnerability, caring, and harmoniously assertive. So, what kind of work you do or how you do your work, you could be in the same job. A person could be digging a hole in the ground and find nirvana by how they're doing it. Yeah, you could be in the same job and fight, 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 and all kinds of stuff. Or you could keep bringing harmony and integration in the environment you are. And what then makes things possible is you becoming an earth-like gravity. Yeah. Um, Adding value in a way that earth and live its life. Systems could be functioning because of how you invisibly, intangibly support how the system shows up, how growth shows up. That's also called career by caring. caring for your career, caring for what you do. There's Stephen Covey's eighth principle, where you don't just function as part of a system, but as a representation of the system itself. And then how you then interact, what do you speak for, is vastly different than if you played a victim, perpetrator, rescuer. And your elbows, maintaining the health of your different joints, plays an important role in who you are, how you're poised in the whole scheme of things. What's your stance, stature? Um, so maintaining health from these thought lines, no, these thought lines become available when you maintain your health in a humane manner by the Nirbeeja Yoga method. Otherwise, you could strike asanas, but still you would have to, paste a smile to have that smile, and not a genuine smile. You would have a lot of smileys ready for a photo, or there's a surface thing of it, but the depth of the matter may be uncomfortable, unhealthy, not happy. That's not really health. You could do yoga, but that's not really yoga. That's another form of exercise. Yeah. Yoga makes so many beautiful difference, like how Earth does. And live in life, we have life shows up on the planet Earth because of how Earth maintains life, maintains health, maintains the gravitas of the matter. Now that Earth is a planet, not a particle in the Kuiper belt. Yeah. And other planets are also having planet composition, definition of planet, but not Earth-like. We are still looking for Earth-like composition. Yeah. Now, like family members or part of an organization, when you are showing up alive and doing things which hasn't been seen before, that's more like you're being a pioneer. Earth is being a pioneer, yeah, in having life. Others are more inspired to maintain a certain distance around you and then look at what are you doing and then slowly be inspired by slowly. It's like by induction cooking. They are also inspired by, we also will do some of that. Yeah, we won't tell you, but even if they tell, can you understand? Because every person under the same roof is talking their own languages. But quietly, even if you're not speaking, can you be understood? Can your silence be understood in a way that you're not threatening? That takes some Vishachikitsa and Tattvashuddhi. Yeah. So you have a humane presence and you're not, oh, now, me being quiet and I'm going to be smiling from inside and people are going to feel a humane presence. No, that's like icing on a mud cake or a cow dung cake. And it can be very much palpable. You can sense a person who's smiling inside as like, you're odd. Yeah. Those who are sensitive enough to be able to pay attention to those fine little details of behavior mannerisms. Yeah. Okay. Now, uh, bringing your attention, I think, okay, bring your attention to your elbows and then gently bring your attention to the tension of your bones. I mentioned this, but all of this talk was necessary to bring a little more attention to how the elbows have a role to play in who you are and how you're poised in the whole scheme of things. And elbows have a reference with the diaphragm. So if your diaphragm is in a particular manner, if you have limbs and you have elbows, then your elbows will be a particular manner. Nevertheless, if you have a diaphragm and don't have limbs, if you had limbs, your limbs would be a particular manner, but your diaphragm is still talking about your experience of living. Okay? Now, bring your attention to your elbows if you have limbs and uh, notice, just dangle your arms at the sides, not necessarily on the armrest of your chair. And notice, what is the weight of your elbows vis-a-vis your wrists or your shoulders? Your elbows could have a weight of their own because the muscles bunched up or the bones are so strong that the bones never have relaxed, like the heart functions. But heart also needs to rest every now and then to be able to function well enough. Heart has its own physiology for maintaining health, but bones also need rest. Otherwise, they be stocky, bulky, and like a bludgeon. Yeah. When you're maintaining health of your bones, they are maintained a little soft, not necessarily cartilaginous, but breathing, and less likely to be brittle. Yeah, because they would be a little like a trampoline, a little bit, not soft, not that soft like a trampoline, but can have a bounce vis-a-vis your muscles. So your bones and your muscles are in a little bit of a dance. That's possible when you maintain the health of your bones. So that's part of how Nirbeeja Yoga. But we are only looking at the elbow as a joint that has muscles, that has bones, that has nervous system, blood, and several connections, and is a joint of the body. So, nevertheless, being aware that there are these different variations that gives your physiology, your elbow's physiology, a difference, morning versus evening. Yeah, between your family members versus you. Your family members may have students doing different activities. So the tissue memory of their elbows and the physiology consequently would be different than the tissue memory of you as a daily wage laborer, maybe. Yeah, because you would lift more weight and the physiology of your elbow would be different versus a home care, homemaker. Yeah, where you're cooking and doing all sorts of stuff. Now, paying attention to your elbows as they are in light of these different variations um, allows for you to maybe, as you pay attention to the weight of your elbows, be able to relax your wrists so that you can pay attention to the health of your elbows. Because it would be a little less pressure on your elbows if you relax your wrist or at least do this um, rotation movements at your wrist. You may notice a certain movement about the bones of your elbows because the wrists are connected with the through the skeleton with your elbows. And that may bring a little more attention to how your bones are related to your muscles of your elbows. With your hand arms dangling at the sides and feeling the bones of your elbows, that could bring a little relaxation in the region of your elbows if you rotate your wrists. There's a little bit of awareness, but it would help enlighten, reduce the weight of your elbows by making gentle movements at the wrists. Yeah, because the muscles will get a little bit of a massage. And you need to do this really gently, very gently, because that will allow for the muscles to not go through a traumatic experience, but instead, like slowly corkscrew, change. Yeah, reduces the tension in the muscles. And muscles, when they are more relaxed, they are less tensing on the bones. So the bones can have a breather. Otherwise, it's like, on the neck, choking the bones, and the bones can't breathe because the muscles are holding on to the bones like for life to be able to support your arms in doing the activities you need to. So subconsciously, you're so bunched up, you're choking your bones. Yeah, and your bones can't breathe. And your bones are also having marrow, bone marrow, from where immunity becomes better. And if your bones are choking and bone marrow is not functioning as well, your space inside your bones is not as easy as they need to be. And so you have existential angst because you have no space, because your muscles are choking, your bones are choking your space inside your bones. Yeah. So there are so many benefits to the beach yoga. If you see it, look at this. Gently rotate your wrist. And it's not just about feeling your bones, but knowing why your bones needs to be relaxed, why your muscles needs to be relaxed, and then your bones needs to be relaxed so that the space inside your bones are relaxed and you have the space to be. Yeah. When you have the space inside your body, inside your bones also, the room that you are sitting in will seem less claustrophobic. Like you just have this much space and you have to live within that. You would be living in a space that is sufficient enough for you to be. Yeah. And that's also an experience of happiness. When your bones are having space, you have a space. internally you have an ability to be, and then you can do. That's more a happy, have space person doing stuff versus survival because I did this much. Yeah, very difficult. It's called dukkha. Difficult space. Otherwise, you have sukha. You have the space enough to be. Big difference. So I have to say that about not just about Nirbeeja Yoga, it's about why yoga. Some of the benefits of yoga. And awareness is part of what yoga makes available, or what you become aware of when you're doing yoga the way you need to is vastly different. Like how Earth experiences life versus other planets. Vastu Shastra, where your environment is not defining you. Your bodily experience is defining the environment or how you experience the environment. Big difference. This is external influence on the internal versus internal presence and the external experience or the external um, space. You're the life of the party, yeah, so to speak, because you're having a happening life. You have a life you're living, and then you are in a room with people with different levels of health, different activities. You are a space who is then entering into another space. Yeah, when you're crossing from the bedroom to the washroom or the kitchen, two different spaces, but you acknowledge the space because you're constantly aware of the space inside you, and then you're noticing this change in space between one room and the other. Big difference in how you experience life. So who's in your room? You have all these screechy, authoritative voices. That could also be because you're having your bodily composition is all like this. And then your voices from your past-based experiences or your bosses or authoritative figures would be more like loudspeakers in your head. And you're having a tiny little space and you keep shrinking and shrinking. And oh my God, yeah, you become old. You have advanced glycation end products and you don't know how to digest those age, advanced glycation end products. You don't know how to digest them also. So you continue to be glycation end products comes from sugar, which is a right chiral molecule. And when it's digested, it forms advanced glycation end products. And they could leave precipitates, also called impressions. Yeah. They are internally pressed, impressed. Otherwise, they are expressed. Yeah. So you could be, kut ke bhara hai. And then you're in this little space, big person, tiny, itsy bitsy living space. You're mighty being, itsy bitsy living space. And if your expression is going a little less, when you regularly digest, that impressions are regularly getting converted into expressions, and in some way, you, with the regular healthier metabolism, Nirbeeja Yoga method, your expression begins to become communication. You begin to communicate with another, but I would have to help people also have their expressions because a lot of people are not talking. So, how do you talk to people who are so much impressed and not expressed? And then I need to communicate such good, nice things of what yoga makes available. So, I'm working on converting your impressions into at least expressions. If you have a book and you're writing, that's a form of expression. But what's happening inside? You don't have to tell anybody. And you can tell others. If you are comfortable enough with telling others, then write a blog, yeah, or on social media, or just let your opinion know on WhatsApp status. Yeah, that's still an expression, but do that regularly so you have the habit of expressing regularly. And if somebody responds to it, that's a form of communication because what you're expressing is not just a message, it's the message has landed with somebody so much so that they responded. That is communication. You have a message, expressed it, doesn't become a message. It's still a message. It's like to whom it may concern. But when it is message to a person and what you're intending to say lands with the other person, that's communication. Otherwise, they're hearing you and your message is not getting through, and what you've had is an expression. Communication didn't happen. Communion, communication community. That's when messages are being landed, and otherwise you have expression. A lot of talk, nobody's understanding what in the world are you talking. So I got to do a lot of expression, communication, hopefully, to change the impressions into at least expressions where people can make paintings, sing songs, write, what have you, cook, for example, or make videos, content, which then tells you're understanding what I'm saying. And you're having a little more expressions called self-expression. And then over time, when you can stand up for what you're making available, what's the beauty that you are, who's come into existence, that's a leader. You're leading your life. Otherwise, you're surviving your life. You're not even leading your life unless you're expressing and standing by what you do your everyday activities for. Yeah. That's beauty with a purpose. That's the star, slowly, Star Trek, little by little by little. Yeah. That's the semi-Dirac fermion found in a zirconium silicon sulfate crystal inside it. Yeah. Where zirconium is a crystal found apparently from, that came to Earth from the heart of stars. Yeah. And have you heard of we are stardust? Carl Sagan says we are all stardust. So semi Dirac fermion found inside a zirconium silicon sulfate crystal. Silicon is also, Silicon Valley. You have computer chips. So we are basically walkie-talkie computers and stardust. But are you slowly becoming a star? Star Trek, little by little, one step another, climb stairs, little by little, mountaining, trekking. You become a star. But that requires expression, moving your muscles, or even if you're not moving a muscle, having this Nirbeeja Yoga, by which to at least have the space in which you can then be, but also express, and then express in such a way that somebody don't want to punch you. Yeah. So you have to learn how to speak because others are having their own impressions. But you can at least have the space to express, or you can see, be aware of the environment, pay attention to flora, fauna, seasons, and then make your little your values slowly available to see which one is more acceptable versus somebody's going to punch at you. Yeah, it's not just positive messages, but your stuff, when you express, you need to sort of try it out. Is it going to be acceptable? Is somebody going to how are somebody going to respond to what you're making available? Oh, I have Nirbeeja Yoga stuff. And three other values: Dharmapada for soul satisfaction, um, mythology, wisdom, intelligence, therapy. I call it myth. Yeah. Then there's Connect Dot, which is Connect Dot marketing, corrective marketing. When you're making small corrections or making aware of, this is actually causing problem. Instead, if you do this, you're more likely to have better health, wealth, wisdom. Connect Dot marketing. Yeah. Um, and I'm speaking in terms of conscience, and people are in a world functioning by consciousness. So I'm speaking stuff which people don't really like because conscience is something that they go confess in the church to have their conscience be clean. And I'm talking that as a business value. So I need to really watch for where the punch is coming from. Yeah. So instead, I also have my understanding of conscience is conglomerate science. And a lot of people are faced with difficulties in communicating science. So I'm faced with, I got lots of resistance. But resistance capacity is also what electricity, for example, makes available. Yeah, electricity. So it's a different, it's bioenergy, but there is so many benefits to having a body that's human. And we are compositions on Earth. Yeah. And Earth over time formed human beings, including a creature like me. Yeah. Who's talking about the benefits of having life and of yoga and that human beings are designed to live in life in the multiverse. Yeah. Lots of potential. It's not just potential, it's what I'm doing, what I am making available in the course of at least this half an hour. Have you had some benefit? Is your life any better? Or you've heard some things which are better heard, like when you go for a walk on a with a cool breeze, and there's this balmy sunlight, and you're hearing happy things. And what's the benefit of happy things in your everyday life? Try playing some music while you're working. Yeah, pleasant music, just instrumental, and see what difference that does to your everyday experience of living, or when you're working, or you have the fan on in a room that is otherwise stuffy. Yeah, you will know what's the difference of having a happy, pleasant demeanor, what effect you could have on other people when you have a pleasant demeanor, which is some of the benefits that yoga makes available. Nirbeeja Yoga at least makes available. So if you would like to be one among those people who has an earth-like composition, pleasant, balmy weather, just yeah, you're just happy. You have a space in which to be, and can be mindful when other people may not be having the space as well, but you could have their life be pleasanter by just you being better. You're weller, other people don't know why, but they tend to do weller. Yeah. So do join my community if you're interested. Learn.dynamicstillnesses.com. LEARN dot DYNAMICSTILLNESSES.com. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this has been of value to you. Good day. You.